tell me that we've got Diamichis out there with Alex Thomas. Joe Marmerstein is there. Nick Gelati, a new Thunderbird. Leading the charge is Isaac Smith. And then rounding out this defensive lineup is Xavier Maxted. Disc is swung by the Thunderbirds. O'Brien gets it back to Pavlianis. Giannis shuffles it over to Trotter. Trotter looking, and he shoots one and inside out into the middle where it's picked up and shuffled out to O'Brien. O'Brien sends it back to Trotter in the middle. Smith is marking him. Disc is now in the hands of Giannis again. Looking downfield, O'Brien looking, cutting in hard but guarded tight by Alex Thomas, who lays out for the first block of the season against Michael Pardo, but we have a call on the field and it looks like a foul. I'm joined right here by another Thunderbird stalwart. It's number 71, Sauce the Boss, Tad Whistle. Not in uniform tonight, but part of our team, Tad. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks, man. Good to be here. Excited for this game.
Unfortunately, Danny Miller finishes that first point with throw to Captain Jack Shea in the end zone, and the Thunderbirds go down 1-0. What can we look for, Tad, tonight, aside from these big defensive bids that we've been getting from players like Alex Thomas in the past? We're now, again, I told you folks that some of the technical difficulties are being worked out, but Tad, you're still with us, right? What do you expect to see? You've been training with the team and expect to be out there on the field at times this season. What have you noticed during this the first month before the season, last month, and what can we expect to see today?
We got a lot of new faces, especially on the defensive side of the biz. We just saw them last week. Isaac Smith dressed some last year. Started the game kind of down.
But some old ones too. If you're looking out here right now, Patrick Earls working with Max Thorne, who's here for a full season, finds Ethan the Birdman Beardsley up the line. He's being guarded by Alex Rummelhart, and he finds, once again, Patrick Earls, who launches a crossfield lefty hammer to find Tyler DiGirolamo. And Tad, that has got to be a welcome sight for Pittsburgh Thunderbirds fans, and a great feeling for Tyler. Tyler coming back after an injury-marred season to catch the goal. You said he's been feeling pretty good. What did you think of that first point?
You can't teach that. I tell you what, Tyler, he's been silent all year last year, professionally and in the club. Ready to be out there. You saw on that play. A great throw by Pat Earls. Respect that Tyler commands. To the foresight. You can't play too tight. You're going to get roasted. That's just tidy, do what he does. Be big and scary and make it really inspect.
And no surprise whatsoever that Patrick Earls was willing to take the risk to throw that crossfield hammer. And you got to feel like he's very happy to have his old friend and teammate Tyler DiGirolamo back. Xavier Maxted, another new Thunderbird, launches this pull deep. Settling underneath it is young Max Trotter, and he's going to find Captain Pavlianis, player who Coach Adrian King talked to us about, says he's brought a lot of energy to the team. C.J. O'Brien lined up in front of him, but this time it's swung out wide. Caught in the middle. Shuffled back up to Giannis, who launches one. Running underneath it is AT in a race for it with Pardo, and O'Brien with a big layout grab in the back of the end zone, and a signal of goal from the referee, Kevin Kramer. And so 2-1 lead for the Wildfire. Were you surprised that AT wasn't able to make up the distance? He's got a lot of speed.
Nice play by Pardo to keep him out of there. Just let the disc go over him. Allow his teammate O'Brien to make a play.
Looking at who the Thunderbirds are going to bring out on defense, it looks like Captain Tyler DiGirolamo is going to play a defensive point. We've got Max Shepard coming on the field, I think, for his first point, and Joe Marmerstein, Patrick Earls with him. Then we've got Tyler, human backwards hat, David Vatz. I'm sorry I'm calling this as a defensive team, but of course it's an offensive team, and it looks like one. Fedchko is out there, and Max Thorne. So not a tall lineup, but a lot of handling skill and a lot of getting open skill in the form of David Vatz, who always seems to find a place. Looks like Max is facing a little bit of a double team. Doesn't seem to bother him. He sends it out to Patrick Earls, and maybe it did bother him because he sends it high for Earls. In the hands now of Trent Poole. Trent looking for Dave Woods. Dave Woods with his man bun, lays out, marked by Marmerstein, sends it out to Rummelhart. Rummelhart faces a mark from Fedorenko, misses with that foot block. surveying the field is cool. He sends it out to, looks like Alan Guillen. Alan Guillen laces one up to Zeman, and now Alan Guillen has it back again. Over on this side of the field is, looks like a little bit of a push off. And it's going the other way. Don't see a lot of defensive or offensive fouls called on the mark. What did you think of that call?
Right now, the Wildfire doing a great job moving the disc side to side, not taking big shots.
Klunder's being double teamed, looking around, and he pops it out to Woods. Woods on the sideline, looking downfield to see what he has. Sends it back to Klunder. Klunder looks out, throws a high one up for Poole to run underneath, and Poole cannot get to it. Streaking deep is Max Shepard. If anybody can pick it up quickly enough, Max goes deep again, and Earl's thinking better of it at first, but then thinking, what the heck, why not? It's Shep, and Shep is open behind Klunder, nobody there, and it's a 50-yard throw, easy forehand laser from Patrick Earls, and we're used to seeing that.
As easy as any forehand laser can be, I suppose, at that distance. Boy, I don't think there's anybody else that has the way he's able to likes that outside input. That's a great thing to have on a 50-yard side.
When Hogan is talking to him about that stuff, how much risk is Coach Hogan willing to accept from somebody like Patrick, who's definitely going to make impulsive throws sometimes? Is it something it's a trade-off that's worth it for him?
Adam's a pretty poor hook on himself. I mean, when it's not connecting, he's not one of those drive blockers that'll keep going back to the well. I mean, 2 or 3.
And he can grind too, and so he's willing to do the hard work to get open. Meanwhile, we've got a big shot down the middle. Jesse Evans chasing it down. It is pulled out of the air by Pardo. Pardo looking, he had Shea, but instead sends it over to Miller. Miller has it on the doorstep. Shuffles it back to Trotter. Trotter looking, sends it up, and from here it looks like it might be Danny Miller who brings it in. No, I'm sorry, that was Johnson. Johnson with the goal, and it's a 2-2 game.
Chicago not afraid to fire shots down the thus far. Second big one. A pretty nice shot. I mean, Thunderbirds trailing the disc, gaining ground, but the offender think the man be able to look back and find it before they can make a play.
Some new Thunderbirds out there on defense on that sequence. We had Josh Sung, who's joined the Thunderbirds, and also Jesse Evans, who is a Fox Chapel product and a longtime mainstay and a pickup player. You and I play with him all the time, and he's deadly out there. It's great to see him suiting up for the pros.
We'll have to talk about Jesse during the quarter break because we've seen that guy back on the offensive field make my
You're not kidding. He has had to come back and fight through a lot, but he is here. As is Patrick Earls, looking downfield, looking for his friend Max Thorne. Another cut from Tyler, who draws a crowd, sends it out to Thorne. Thorne catches it. He's got Shepard going deep. Max is not afraid to throw that up, but he more cautiously dumps it back to Marmerstein. Earls with the disc on the sideline. David Batch shows open, but then clears up the line. He's being guarded by Rockroth, and you're never going to see a big, small combination like that. We've got a stall called right there. Disc will be put in play at the point of the stall, or it should be. Pavlianis picks it up, runs it over to that point. Marmerstein's going to establish a mark, and that 7-second stall, that's kind of hard to get used to, isn't it, Tad?
Yeah.
Rummelhart sends it over the middle. Caught there by Danny. Sorry, that's Leverson. Leverson sends it back out to Rummelhart. He shows it to Pavlianis. Giannis sends one out there to Vakarov. Vakarov is a big, big fellow. We'll talk about him in a minute. Jimmy Sikora with the disc right on the goal line, and he sends a really easy one to Leverson. For the goal, and the Thunderbirds now trail.
First break of the game here.
4-2.
First break of the game. Chicago Wildfire again. Movement heavy. Kicking it sitting around digging a dunk and waiting for the right opportunity with Ottawa and risky throws.
Are you surprised to see the Thunderbirds having trouble getting into the flow? They've got offensive lines going out there with guys who are used to playing with each other and who've had a lot of success in the league, but they seem to be out of rhythm. That's all indicative of that.
Yeah, I mean, they came out the side stack look there. Chicago did some nice switching, which they knew they were going to have to do to make up for the Thunderbirds offense coming into this game, but Pat got caught with a little bit too long.
Looking here at the field, we can see a second Thunderbirds O-line. Young Jonathan Mast, not quite so young anymore and so inexperienced. He's out there on the field. I think we've got, is that Nick Gelati out there on the far side with Hanson Repperman? Kenny Fridella, my mistake, another new face. The Birdman, Ethan Beardsley, Alex Thomas, and looks like, yep, and Steve McGilsky, big number 32. Pull floating down on the goal line to Jonathan. Jonathan finds Maxtat in the center of the field. Flanked over there by Furtada. Shoots one out into space to Repperman. What a beautiful throw. And he sees in the middle the Birdman, who's always open for those easy throws and always gives an easy throw right back to a handler. This time it's McGilsky. McGilsky finds Mast. He's got an in-cut from Furtada, but he looks it off. A little bit of playback between the handlers and a little bit of yardage gain to Maxtat, who sends one right out there that could turn into a goal. And it's possible that McGilsky just milked that too much. Not so sure. Maybe he didn't have an opportunity to catch it there, but Woods picks it up, marked by Thomas. Thomas looking for Poole instead. He finds Romohart. Romohart double teamed by Thomas. Birdman, we have a call on the field. Timeout called. And we'll see whether or not that means that almost certainly the Thunderbirds are going to put the defensive team on the field.
Nick Gelati coming in, as well as Isaac Smith. Isaac Smith has been playing some shutdown and their defense thus far in practice this season. And we've seen bits and pieces of it here tonight early. Interested to see where he matches up and stays in the handler side.
Is Diesel going to come on the field right now? Looks like he is.
Yeah, it looks like Diesel's in for McGilsky.
It's interesting. You just named two guys who a couple of years ago were rostered with this team and were unknown names, kind of workhorse guys, and guys with a lot of potential. A lot of that potential has been realized. How much are the Thunderbirds counting on guys like Steve and the Diesel to be leaders this year?
Diesel's one of those guys that does everything right. He's the workout thread guy. When you got a bit of practice to make a play, he's not shy to do it. It gets people pumped up. And he doesn't change. He plays the system. He's not a risky guy with the disc. That's something that people quietly look up to.
Fridella on the mark and flanked out there. It's right now disc is in the hands of Pavlianis. Max Trotter is flanking him. At the top of the stack, it looks like we might have C.J. O'Brien. We've got Johnson there, Jack Shea. The back is Pardo. And yep, and hopefully this disc has got a little bit too much on it, but Pardo's got plenty of gas, and he runs it down, just snatches it out of the air, puts it in play on the goal line. Looks like he's got Johnson to his right, and O'Brien leaves his feet apparently before he took flight. He then caught the disc and ended up in the end zone, and that's a blow. Thunderbirds fall behind by 3.
That's another huge bid by C.J. O'Brien. We saw the one on the hunt, that one more the same. That's a big man laying out.
It's true, and you know, it's interesting. C.J. O'Brien, who I believe was with Cincinnati last year. Of course, nobody's with Cincinnati anymore. But O'Brien's got a kind of personal investment in every play he makes out there. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
He does. C.J. O'Brien is a minority owner of the team. He's supposed to coach Adrian King, who week Matthew and I.
Yep.
He filled us in on that. So he's involved in some of the decision making. He's been playing ultimate for a long time, and like you said, in a couple different markets, including Cincinnati last year.
And you know, Trent Poole is the number 11, is the GM of this team, and Adrian King, as you know, is a former player, played for them the last few years, and has decided to coach. So, whoa, we've got a great big hug from Marmerstein. Looks like it could be a contest here. Got Fedorenko pulls it down. He was being pursued by Carl Kingma, who is not a small man himself. Fedorenko positioned himself well, and looks like that throw from Marmerstein got there just in time to beat Kingma to the disc, and Fedchko pulled it down. But I was saying just before that point that this is a team that has a lot of player involvement in every facet of it. A.J. Nelson, who was of course a mainstay, really the face of the franchise for a while, when he can be here as an assistant coach. You've got a player GM, you've got a part owner of the team who is a player, and a former player now coaching his teammates. So, you know, the Wildfire have slipped. But talking to us, Adrian King seemed really excited about this squad and about the energy they have. Gone are a lot of the hired guns. Goose Helton has moved on to greener pastures. Bob Lou is no longer here. But he feels like this team has got a lot of enthusiasm and energy. They're showing it now, up 5-3 against the home team.
You mentioned that also. They made a lot of their roster decisions based on guys who were committed, guys that wanted to turn this team into a program.
And that's something the Thunderbirds have tried to do too. All of these guys are guys with big commitments, and we're seeing some of them out there now. Isaac Smith and Xavier Maxtat, really the only big free agent signing. Johnson catches the disc, front of the defense. Disc is swung over to C.J. O'Brien again, putting a mark on slowly is Maxtat. Making a big bid is no surprise there, Anson reprimand, but it looks like there was contact. And a lot of disgruntlement. And you can see reprimand calling for the integrity rule, and in fact he got that. And it looks like Pardo said, no, that wasn't a foul. Reprimand got the block cleanly, so tally up number 1 for the air traffic controller. This one is swung out to Thorne. Thorne looking, he's got Smith juking in front of him, instead sends it over. Where it's shuffled out wide, AT is the target, he jumps up, but looks like Jack Shea, the captain, manages to get it, and that was a weak throw from Maxtat. Tell us a little bit about Xavier Maxtat, UNCW product, a lot of success in college.
Xavier Maxtat, phenomenal thrower, just didn't quite get enough on that one.
Smith making a bid there, almost getting a piece of it. Smith is a high energy, high motor guy. Maxtat puts on the mark on Miller. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Gelati. Sweet mark from him, but instead it's swung out to O'Brien. He puts this one up, it's a floater. Reprimand underneath it. This looks like food for the air traffic controller, and he says no landing in this end zone, and it's block number 2.
Well, you know anything about Alex Thomas? He's saying thanks for stealing my D, Anson.
Well, Thomas actually positioned himself beautifully, and as a consequence, Anson had plenty of room to go up and make that block without a lot of competition. Maxtat walks back to pick it up. Gelati. No, it looks like is that Ferdella? Ferdella on his right. Looks like it might be Smith back with him. Thomas catches it in open space in front of Shea. Looking downfield to see what he has. He's got reprimand. Gelati cutting downfield. Ferdella on this side, and Gelati, it's jacked up over there, and we see immediately reprimand puts his hands up, not happy with his choice, but the guy you mentioned before, the guy who does everything right, John Diamichis, saves Anson reprimand, pulls his fat out of the fire, and a timeout is wisely called so the Thunderbirds can compose themselves and maybe get a big score down here to get the score to 5-4.
I think Anson reprimand might need to buy Diesel Diamichis a celebratory soda at lot 17 after the game following that one.
Sounds like a good idea, maybe even something a little bit more adult, because that was a big boy play that he made down there. He was in the forest with a lot of tall trees because this is not a small lineup for Chicago, and he is not a big man until he jumps, at which point, like Max Shepard and some of the other Thunderbirds, Max Thorne, they get big fast.
And Diesel's all muscle. You don't get a nickname like Diesel. Not looking like you or I, Max.
No, definitely not. No, he doesn't have the extra cushioning for those long road trips. Yep.
Ty-D, Max Thorne, David Mass, Pat Earl, Shep, John Mass. Set up Mass has had a great offseason in terms of honing his throws. He's taken a lot more shots, something he hasn't been known for.
No, he made this team because he was a young guy with an old guy's judgment, and then of course he had a knee injury to come back from. I talked to him before the game, and he says it feels very good. He feels it sometime, but it doesn't worry him. Got a little contact at the front there with Kingma matched up against Ty D, kind of leaning on him. It looks like they're kind of in the paint there. And instead it's shuffled back to Mask. Mask looking. Marmerstein circling behind him, but Max Thorne has it in his hand. He sees Tyler DiGirolamo explode towards the sideline. Looking, doesn't like what he sees in front of him. But Marmerstein making a strike cut up the line and takes it away from the defender who dives in front of him. And looks like there was contact there, so that disc is going to be recentered and moved 1 yard up. Kingma making a big bid, and Marmerstein, very cool, manages to get hold of it. The cutter split, DiGirolamo catches a little flick bender, almost a blade, and we've got Ty D's second goal, and that one brings the Thunderbirds to within 1. And that's a lot more comfortable with 2:18 left in this quarter.
It's a big break to get back, man, especially early in the game. Had a great timeout call, I think, there to get the early.
You know, since we weren't able to talk a lot before the start of this the telecast, because we came in here with our stream kind of hot, you had some hot takes about some of the things you think the Thunderbirds need to do in order to start the season off right. What were some of the things you had in mind, Ted?
You know, I think start strong was a good one, and the start of the game, I think, really in an AUDL contrast was about the first third, so the Thunderbirds still have time to turn around. So the young Chicago team can really ride on energy. If you keep them in the game, they're going to believe it. If you put a young guy, or a younger player in a situation where you think they're out of it, they're more likely to believe it.
Speaking of younger players, Max Trotter swings it over to Pavlianis. He's being guarded hard right there by number 19, another new Thunderbird, and that's Jordan Rohrbarsch. All right, disc is in the hands of Giannis, again marked by Repperman. He sends up an inside-out floating forehand. Settling underneath it is Pardo, who pulls it down, being guarded there by, it looked like that might have been Big Steve Moe, but he was unable to get up there and take it away, and very quickly, taking less than 30 seconds to strike back, the Wildfire cushioned that lead to 2 goals again. Tell us a little bit more about what you were talking about earlier, because I know we both feel this way. This is a kid that we've both known for a long time, and he's not so much of a kid anymore, Jesse Evans. He's had to come back from some significant challenges. I think he's had some injuries in the past, and he's just not a guy who I think anybody thought of as a potential pro. And now here he is out here.
10 years ago, Jesse Evans was a household name in Pittsburgh Ultimate. He graduated from Fox Chapel High School in 2005, was one of the best players in both.
No doubt.
He had an early budding club career with Purdue, and he went to Edmonton.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Instructing Kung Fu, and forgot that he played Ultimate. We started seeing him pick up last year.
Yeah, I mean, I almost assumed that there was an injury, and I remember there being some injuries there. Nothing, and I think there was contact there on the mark, and the defense, and we should probably get a call. And sure enough, we do. And but integrity rule is invoked. And instead, it looked like the Birdman felt like he should have had that one, and instead, it looks like Giannis is going to pick it up, directing traffic. Marmerstein.
20 yards out, another chance to
And
break.
Sikora goes up the line, and I think that's one of those things, again, that you mentioned, Tad, and it's called the goal by Kramer, that I think was an AUDL-style adjustment that Dave Vatz just failed to make. He forgot, I think, momentarily, that Jimmy Sikora is allowed to move before that disc is tapped in. And Sikora started that cut, ran away from Dave Vatz, and had a good 10 steps up the line before Vatz really seemed to know what was going on. So that might be another one of those adjustment issues.
Absolutely, and that's a tough spot to get help from the back of the stack, who's worried about the hammer space against first leg. We talked to Adrian King again earlier in the week about how much time the Wildfire spend with this young squad trying to learn and adjust to the AUDL style of play. He said, they give it it's important to do at practice, especially with the cadences, the quarters, and little things like that, like moving forward.
Klunder throws up a pull, passes through the sunlight into the growing shadows here, settles down in the hands of Marmerstein. Sends a disc up to Max Thorne, who sends it back to him. Thorne looking, sends it into the middle, probably ill-advised, but Max Shepard covers a multitude of sins with his skills and now looks determined to get downfield. And working against that deep defense of Kingma, giving Pat Earl some room to operate. Patrick looking up the line, and he sees DiGirolamo, and I think this is number 3 for him. And DiGirolamo is finding places in the end zone, which is a territory he has owned in this league, setting the single season assist record, but also catching a lot of goals his first season. It's really encouraging to see him looking so good, and his throwers enjoying throwing to him again. But let's talk about the real star of that point, and that was Max Shepard, who managed to bail out Max Thorne, who tried to squeeze a throw into a space that was a little too small. Max Shepard's a remarkable player. Talk about what he can do. He's a fellow Edinburgh product. I know you're proud of that.
I am. Max Shepard is a fantastic young player. He's finishing his final year at Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania, and as crazy as it might sound, a team like Pittsburgh, a team like Case Western, a team like Penn State in the Ohio Valley region, he might be the best player in the Ohio Valley. It just so happens he goes to Edinburgh.
And here is a pull at about 36 seconds left in the quarter. Trotter settling underneath it. And the clock starts, and we'll see how Chicago treats this chance. He's double teamed very quickly, sends it out to Trotter, who can't catch up with it. And this is something that the Thunderbirds said they were going to work on. You talked about it, the AUDL style. Part of that is the double team. All right, it's in the hands of Fridella. Fridella laces it out where he finds Isaac Smith. Isaac Smith looks into the end zone, and it looks like that was Gelati. And it's going to be hard for me to resist the dessert metaphors. Gelati, sweet catch in the end zone, and the Thunderbirds, with 13 seconds left, set up the Wildfire for maybe a Hail Mary on this last point. One of the other fun things about a game that's played to time, unlike the games that are played to points in the typical USAU style, is we get these before the quarter points where we get to see a sort of NFL style, let's send all the receivers deep, and you got it. In fact, I don't know if you were watching some of the early AUDL highlights, but we had a last-second greatest, which ended up in the end zone for a score, and that's something that the AUDL brings to the game. Trotter sends it up to Giannis, and Giannis looking, Shea cutting in, clock down to 7, Cool has it. Cool finds Klunder. Klunder puts it up, and this might not make it there. And fortunately, that defense didn't see who got the block, but it looks like Shep. Shep getting congratulations from the Birdman. It's funny, the biggest guy on the field, and then one of the littlest guys goes ahead and gets the block, and a great big bump in the air from Sung as the Thunderbirds finish this quarter trailing just 7-6. And it could have been worse than that after the Wildfire went on that little bit of a run and got a couple breaks on the T-Birds.
No doubt. The Wildfire, notice here, they're young, but they came to play, and I think, Matt, we both saw that in the warm-ups, how pumped up those guys were.
They definitely were, and you could tell from guys shouting encouragement to each other, but also, there was an expectation set by guys like O'Brien, who you saw in the game laying out in the back of the end zone. That's not the first time he did that tonight. The first time he did that was in a warm-up drill, when he laid out in the back of the end zone down there. And obviously, that's a throw that counts for nothing, but to a young team to see its leadership willing to lay it out like that, it clearly counts for a great deal. So the Thunderbirds are going to have to answer back.
At the end of the game, they have
Yeah.
Max Shepard, the smallest guy,
No doubt. Hey, talking about Maxes, let's talk about another Max, and that's Max Thorne. He's been a guy who had a stellar career at Pitt. He won a college championship with his brother in his first year, and then he won a second college championship, and so it's an unforgettable career. Finished it up just recently. He's been a part-time Thunderbird. This year, he's a full-time Thunderbird, and while Alex, who has that Swiss Army knife of incredible throws, is in England studying, Max is here. What does he bring to the team?
It's been a long time since people have seen Max Thorne healthy. I think for some people this is the first time since 2015 with Pittsburgh Thunderbirds. He suffered that injury, knee injury, kind of that Nationals reactivated something. initials last year, and now here he is after taking so much time off. Really, I told Dave he's the poster child for waiting to actually be healthy to come back.
Right, and I know that
rarely happens at all.
I know in an excellent piece that showed up on the AUDL's website this winter. And I think it was Leveler, did Evan Leveler write that piece on Tyler DiGirolamo? And of course, his Tuesday toss is kind of required reading, along with Sin the Fields, obviously, if you want to follow what's going on in Ultimate. And you know, he said about Tyler DiGirolamo that maybe he came back a little bit too soon. He wanted to be healthy before he was healthy. And I think Max Thorne, you know, went the other direction, and hopefully it's going to pay off here. He's a quiet guy. I mean, I babysat Max Thorne when he was a year or two old. He wasn't quiet then. His parents were out and he wasn't happy about it. But he doesn't say much, but his play speaks volumes, and I think it's going to be exciting to see him out here. Especially out here rejoining some of his pit teammates, people like Patrick Earls and Tyler. You know, it's interesting. I wanted to one more time mention Jesse Evans, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot from him on the field. But when you mentioned that he'd been off doing kung fu, it's almost like a kind of kung fu situation, isn't it? You know, he was kind of wandering, finding himself. And now he's back here and playing Pro Ultimate, and you know, a better guy you're not going to find. So here comes a pull to start the second half, settling underneath it. It's Mast. Mast brings it up to the aforementioned Max Thorne. A very experienced handling lineup out there. And speaking of experience, the human backwards hat, we're going to start calling the ageless wonder Dave Vatz, always finding open spaces in the field. He's working downfield in that space in the middle. Tyler DiGirolamo finds an overhead. Vatz cuts back to him, is going to shuffle it right back out to him, looking up the line. He's got the Birdman, but instead he goes across the field, and looks like that was John Mast on the receiving end of a Tyler DiGirolamo patented hammer throw. And to add to those goals that he's already collected, we have an assist, and that was his true trademark. So it looks like that when I asked you about Tyler D, you gave me a frank assessment. You said 94% and rising. And he's looking every bit of that. That is great to see. And so is the tie score at 11:20 of the second quarter.
He had a chance to play Worlds last year.
Sure.
He recapped as best he could, and he only gets so many chances to win Worlds, which he went out there and did. He wasn't quite the same when he got back. It's great to see him out here again.
Yep. I know that he did some traveling, and I think got some perspective, and then came back to work, and now he's here, and we're happy to have him. And Giannis swings it out to Max Trotter. Cutting in downfield is Jack Shea, was open, wasn't seen, however it's a strike cut. And Giannis puts one up deep to a wide open Danny Miller, who just got lost in the shuffle. And Max Shepard runs it out, but a quick score and a big throw from Giannis, who again, Coach Adrian King told us has been a spark plug, and he's been out there every point and right in the middle of it. And Danny Miller we've seen before. He's a tough player, and certainly found his way into open space there. You've played on this D team quite a bit. How does a mix-up like that happen? How does a guy get that free? You know, you understand when it happens in your rec league games, but how does it happen with the pros?
It's like anything else. When it happens to you, you don't understand how.
Right, right. I thought I counted them all, right?
For a guy like Max Shepard, who can cover so much of the field, sometimes you take a few liberties. I hope this goes up so I can make a play.
Sure.
That's a situation where Giannis will get fantastic.
Sure, put a little bite on it, and so there was no float to it. But of course, we've seen Max make those plays when it did float a little bit. Looks like Jonathan Mast is going to let it hit the ground. Sends it up to Max Thorne. Hard to tell. I think that's Pat Earls out there on the far right flank. Fedchko making a cut in. And it looks like we've got maybe a foul there. We'll see if they step off yardage. If Jonathan got stepped on by Pavlianis, it looks like he did. And Giannis went right over and apologized to him, and John looks just fine, which is good to see. We've got the Birdman deep, and in motion now is Fedorenko, gives a little bit of a bump. And yep, but it doesn't look like Rotundi minds it all.
Amazing throw by Fedchko.
Yep, right, little inside-out backhand. I love that throw. And now Tyler in a position to maybe score. He's about 20 yards out, double team, sends one up. Unfortunately, that one was between two Thunderbirds receivers, but not a problem for Vakarov to pull down. On the far sideline, now we've got Sikora. Sikora laces it across the field, finds Michael Egan. Michael Egan. Yep. Sends it back. Egan has it again. Rummelhart was in the mix for a little while, and now Giannis looking. The stall count getting up high, but bailed out by Egan, who sends one quickly and a little bit too quickly out to Sikora. It squirts through his hands. He was being ably defended by David Vatz, who, lest we forget, can play defense on a turnover.
Absolutely. Vatz has a great body position. He can get up,
and he's never been slow. Never been slow.
Very quick.
And
with stack here, gets some backfill by Vakarov, big hand and breaks.
Yep, Rummelhart on the mark. Max Thorne throws a pinpoint throw out to Fedorenko, who doesn't hesitate a second and throws this one to the bench. Fetchko's going to want that one back, but he's not going to get it unless he makes a block, which he might very well. Mark doesn't like to make mistakes like that. And,
See Ty D going deep. It's like putting the pork chop in front of the dog.
I would have a hard time looking off that throw. I know you would too. Speaking of Ty D, he picks up the mark on Giannis. Sikora flanks in. Egan looking to go deep, and he does go deep. He's got company back there though with the Birdman, but gets to it first. And there's a pile up there. He's got his choices. Rothundi's got it. He finds Giannis, and Giannis doesn't have. Oh, hold on a second. I think that disc looked to me like it was out of bounds. My thought is, looking at that catch, that the receiver did not establish full possession, that he actually bobbled it a little bit and he stepped on the end line, but that is not the way the referee saw it, and he's a lot closer to it than I am. And so it looks like, I think it was probably Trevor Bauer over there. And I don't know if you got a look at that. We'll
hold it, we'll share.
Sounds good. Yeah, I don't know if you saw it, Tad, but we had a catch over there on the sideline, and I'm right now not sure who the receiver was, but he caught it, appeared to bobble, and then I thought he secured it on the end line, or on the sideline, but it was called a goal, and here comes a big pull. Thunderbirds didn't look ready for it, but it's come down to him.
They've got the D team out there again after another break where they're kind of second O-line look. Marmerstein's got it with Max sat back there. Shep, a lot of home run throwers out there.
Alex Thomas calling for it, catches it on the sideline. He's got a shot up the line, and it's caught with a layout. And I believe that was Ferdella. That's a name I'm going to have to get used to calling because, Tad, he's made a bunch of plays. He's a new face for me, but he's quickly establishing himself as a valuable player, and he gets the Thunderbirds back within one.
A nice play by Ferdella from his Pittsburgh Alloy teammate, Alex Thomas. Alex Thomas, not the first guy you think of when you think of big-time upfield strike delivers on the team, but certainly threw one out there for his teammate there.
And, it's important to remember that all of these guys, this is not your winter casual league team. Alex Thomas has an open shot up the line. He's going to be able to make that shot up the line, and he did, but he got a little help from Ferdella. And it's interesting you should mention that they're both players for Alloy. The Pittsburgh mixed tradition is not as venerable as the men's or women's, but it has grown like wildfire. Alloy, of course, making an appearance at Nationals. Crucible right behind them. A lot of really strong women apparently trying out for Alloy this year. And I think 110 players came out to their early season pickup games. So, it's nice to see the mixed contingent making an impact for the pro team.
Yeah, Ultimate is just growing so much over the last 5 years. 5 years ago, we didn't have good pickup in town, and a lot of the people you see here, and you see it at those mixed tryouts are the people that you and I get to play with every weekend. It's an exciting time for the team.
It is, and I know hold on, we've got a huck going up here to Pardo. Pardo Pardo mistimes his jump, felt probably had to go up early, and I can imagine that seeing Anson Repperman back there with you might make you commit a little bit before you're ready. Isaac Smith fakes that backhand huck and sends it out to Sung. On the sideline, we've got the Diesel. Diesel looking, and he's got Shepard going deep. Shepard had his head down, lifted it up, and he had a throw coming to him. He tracks it down just inside the cone for a goal. I don't think Shep was looking for it. He was clearing downfield, but Diesel said, "What the heck?" and found him there for a goal to knot this up at 9-9.
Diesel's playing some of his best ultimate right now. You know, he's been with the team since its first year. Wasn't always dressing that season, but here he is making big plays. It's his second huge play of the game. That's an important break for the Thunderbirds to get.
And I think that it's significant that guys like Diesel, guys like AT, they don't have to look over their shoulder this year at high price, kind of high powered free agents, high profile free agents like the high five guys last year, who brought a lot of firepower to the team. But that meant that the guys that we just named had to look at their position as one where, look, I can't take chances, I can't make mistakes, that's not what I'm here to do. Now they know they're the guys who are going to make the plays, and they're making them.
Yeah, it's something that Dave Lionetti said before the game. They've kind of sacrificed that firepower for overall cohesion, and something that's going to pay dividends, especially early in the year, but really late in the year once people get used to playing with one another.
Verdella misses that strike cut up the line, then lays out for Giannis's fake. Now O'Brien's got it marked by Mogilski. Send it in the middle of the field to Trotter. Max Trotter marked by Xavier Maxstat. So Max on Max. And this one sent into the middle of the field, laced up. Looks like that shot might have come from Danny Miller, and he finds Johnson. Now Miller runs away from his defender, the Birdman. And Giannis being covered ably by Verdella, but he's got to look up the line. Jack Shea is there, but he's covered downfield by Mast. Running around back there also is AT. He's covering Pardo. We've got Johnson back there, and C.J. O'Brien's got a chance to maybe make a throw, but instead sends it back to Miller. Miller looks over to Trotter, sends it there, and then makes that strike cut across. A difficult cut to cover without rolling. And Mogilski forces the throw back to Trotter, who sends a nice inside-out break up to Giannis. Giannis looking downfield. The Thunderbirds are doing a good job of coverage downfield. A lot of good work from the handlers back here, but the Wildfire not getting a lot of opportunities. And we just saw a savvy play where Birdman stepped into a break lane to deny a break throw. Maxstat now goes into a double team. Doesn't last long because it comes back to Trotter. He throws an upside-down throw to Pardo. Pardo catches it near us here on the backhand sideline. Giannis looking tough mark by Alex Thomas. Now it's in the hands of Pardo. Now out to Trotter at midfield. They're losing yardage, and that one could have gotten away from him. Thomas puts the mark on quickly, and it's an impatient throw into space. And Tad, that just happens. Even with pro teams, these guys get tired of cutting. The handlers get a little desperate and give that one to the downfield defense.
That's a coverage sack, Matt. A lucky break for the Thunderbirds that Giannis, a guy that's been lights out so far, been red hot, thrown nothing but great hucks, just got a little impatient there.
Happens to the best of us, and it happened to him. Driving back his defender, Giannis, AT, catches one from Mogilski, then looks to send it to a handler. I think it's Mast. He shoots it up the field to Gelati. Gelati looking. He's got a deep look in the form of the Birdman. Birdman catches him on the sideline. Look for a safe throw here. I can guarantee you this one's going, oh. It wasn't a safe throw, it was the safest throw. The timeout. Coach, get this thing out of my hands. And probably a pretty tired lineup, so a fresh O team coming in. And you can tell us who's walking onto the field right now. A lot of your steady teammates.
Looks like Max Shepard will be out there, Joe Marmerstein, Max Thorne walking on, David Vatz, Pat Earls, pretty much the O team you would expect to be out there.
I think Fedorenko's going to round that out. And, a lot of tempting targets here. For a handler, this is a real feast. So it looks like the Thunderbirds have made an adjustment on defense, and it doesn't look like much more than just greater intensity on that downfield man-to-man defense.
Side-to-side movement is a little bit different when you've got the Wildfire O-line doing it, taking up their entire offensive point. Their D-line starts doing it, and it's like, oh, man, when's the big throw coming? You end up getting beat to the force side like the Thunderbirds have when they've given up those breaks. But right now, the Thunderbirds have a chance to take their first lead of the game to make it 10-9.
All right, let's see. They come out in a vertical stack alignment. No surprise in the end zone. Looks like Rummelhart's going to take the foresight there. And then we've got David Vatz drifting far, far over to this sideline. Then he comes back in. Also in there, it looks like we've got Kingma. We've got Woods. We've got a double team. Definitely we can see Cool over there double teaming the thrower. And that thrower is probably Max Thorne. Marmerstein makes that cut up the line. Woods bodies him up. It's swung into the middle to Tyler D. Patrick Earls is out here, but instead it goes back to Thorne, and Thorne sees Shepard and makes a beautiful catch. He goes up high with that right hand, and he gets the presence of mind to come down with the left foot just in bound. Max Thorne, once again, I think probably owes, I guess Shepard's not buying any sodas tonight at the lot.
Well, and there's why you see 5'8", maybe 5'9" on a good day, Max Shepard deep at the end of a quarter to prevent dudes from ripping down something at the last second. That guy can get up.
He can get up, and he's got tremendous body control. You talked about Max Thorne's body control, but Max Shepard also making that grab and then kicking that foot back and able to make contact inbounds. Let's take a look at now behind for the first time in the game what Chicago is going to counter with. No big surprises on this line. Looks like we've got Trotter and Egan, Giannis, Johnson, Shea, their captain, and looks like on the far side of the field we've got C.J. O'Brien, and Pardo rounds out that lineup. Jesse Evans marks up, and it looks like a deep one might go up, but instead it's sent back. Trotter sends it to Giannis. Giannis thinks better of throwing that one to now it's Danny Miller's hands. Danny Miller sends up a deep one, and this one looks like it's beyond the reach of, whoa, I called that too soon, but instead of catching that thing, Pardo dived on it like it was a grenade.
Again, that's the Anson factor, just having a guy that big and that fast around you. You always know where he is. It makes you do things a little bit early.
Fedchko pulls one in with the right hand. He's being forced hard to the sideline, and then he breaks into the middle to an uncovered Jesse Evans. Jesse takes his time, turns around, sends it back to Fedchko. Nice to get that throw out of his hands. This one's laced out to Isaac Smith, and Isaac throws one up to Diamikas, who catches it leaping over the goal line. Nice throw from Isaac Smith. Not necessarily somebody who, again, we expected at the beginning of the season. You know, if you looked at this roster last season, Isaac Smith's going to be out here throwing goals. Like you said, he's a guy who put on the uniform once or twice for him, and now he's out here making big offensive plays.
Isaac's been good for a long time in Pittsburgh, especially if you played any leagues with him. You don't want to look across the line and find out the hard way that he's covering you. That was just a great throw, and Isaac's a Messiah guy. A school where you go there, you get to do a lot of things, O and D, and we're seeing some of his offensive skill right there.
Very nice, and some nice play and handler there from Robarge. And interesting, I was going to say, I promised myself I wouldn't say it, which means I was going to say it. He is chilly with the disc, and there's a reason for that.
Jordan is the owner and founder of Revival Chili. They are vending their excellent chili. I've had it many times. It's fantastic. Not too spicy. You know?
Maybe for halftime, but we'll definitely have to pick up some water or maybe a soda with that because we've got, he's cooking off the field, cooking on the field, and another reason to come out to Couple Stadium. Meanwhile, AT marks up, but the throw goes to Rummelhart. Pass midfield, dump back to Woods, and here comes Cool, but instead it's broken to Rummelhart. Rummelhart has an opportunity to send it to Kingma. Doesn't. Instead, he finds Klunder. Klunder looking, little juking around. Instead, looks like Alan Guillen being marked by Gelati.
Some nice switching right now by the Thunderbirds.
Definitely to contain any upfield threats. Now they're going to try the other door. This side door is locked. Back to Woods. Again, good defense downfield by the Thunderbirds. We've got Shepard lined up on the mark. First point, we haven't seen Giannis out here on the offense for them, and almost a little bit of with this O-line, a little bit of traffic back there. Rummelhart directing it, sends it out to Vakaroth. Vakaroth can reach around almost anybody. Instead, he sends a little inside out to Alan Guillen, and Alan Guillen finds Pardo right there at the front cone for a goal, and the Wildfire bring it back to within 1.
Well, Matt, a lot of good takeaways from that point. There was some great switching downfield. Alex Thomas and Gelati pulled off a nice switch near the sideline. Max Shepard and AT later in that point, switching off on the handlers. It's something the Thunderbirds have really been focusing on at practice. So look for more of that. That's a good sign. They're going to need to rely on tactics like that to cover the big AUDL field in this game and later on in the season.
Meanwhile, I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the key players in that point for Chicago, Alex Rummelhart, who is a friend of yours. We've got a couple of authors out there on the field, and we might as well plug a couple books. One of them is a player, and that's Alex. Tell us a little bit about the novel that he wrote as Vakarov pulls to the Thunderbirds.
Yeah, Alex Uber Rummelhart. He's like a prolific author with Ulti World. He writes a lot of the Tuesday tips. He just released a book about a young high school ultimate player who just goes a little bit wide there for Tyler DiGirolamo. It's a young fiction book about a high school ultimate player trying to fit in, finds his way with a high school ultimate team. It's a great read. Check it out.
Very cool, and that's something. If we have a lot of high school ultimate players who might be listening to the live stream, and hopefully they'll pick that up. Meanwhile, I think that you had on that turnover a little bit of that fixation on having Tyler DiGirolamo downfield. He was working on his defender, and Birdman's underneath it, and I thought Birdman come down with it, but Vakarov is as big as Ethan, and he kicks out that big leg, shuffles it upfield. This one might be just beyond. It is just beyond Nick Zeman. And so the Thunderbirds get another chance. But I think that throw was forced a little bit. It's so easy to tunnel on a guy like Tyler D. A lot of writers here. You, of course, a prolific writer for Ulti World yourself. And we've also got Kevin Kramer, one of our referees, who has published a memoir for which you wrote the foreword. And we'll get to talking about Universe Point later. Meanwhile, on this point, looks like we've got Marmerstein fouled on a double team, so the Thunderbirds will get 10 yards from that, as Vakarov, who presents an imposing marker along with Leverson, and then Sikora. But Marmerstein finds a hole in that and shuffles it back out over there to Patrick Earls, and Earls has got nobody covering him, so he says, give it back to me. He's in a position he likes to be in, sends it to Marmerstein. A breakout cut from Mast, but instead, this gets sent back to Marmerstein, who got lost in one of those strike cuts. He's got Dave Vatz as a target, but looks like it might come back across the field. Nope, instead, Patrick Earls makes a strike cut. So downfield was mostly distraction there as the handlers handled their business between themselves, and the Thunderbirds are up 12-10 with 1:13 left in the quarter.
Well, that can sometimes happen in the AUDL. You get so focused on the ability that you can double team, it's whether or not you should double team.
Right, because like any sort of a zone, which a double team is, you've got two guys. A guy is open, and when a zone gets broken, somebody's open downfield, and in that case, you can understand why. I would not want to be a thrower surrounded by guys like Sikora and Vakarov, but Marmerstein is a cool character. He found a hole in there, and then it was sort of off to the races.
I want to make sure we get this right. Alex Uber Rummelhart's book, The Ultimate Outsider. That's what it's called. I couldn't come up with it there. It's The Ultimate Outsider. Check it out on Amazon, and support an Ultimate writer. There's very few out there.
It's true, although I think that Ultimate, it's a game that a lot of college players play, and I think we're probably going to see more great Ultimate books than we're going to see, for instance, NFL guys writing books. No offense to the NFL guys out there who are aspiring writers.
Players Tribune, Matt. The Players Tribune.
I am a subscriber, and I enjoy it. Meanwhile, I enjoyed that, which was a throw to nobody at a high stall. Now Fedorenko has it in his hands. Max Shepard working on his man, but instead Josh Sung gets it. He sends one across the field. It's now in the hands of, looks like Jesse Evans, and Jesse Evans throws his first assist to Mr. Max Shepard in the end zone. Number 1 pulls down number 12 for the Thunderbirds, and that clock should stop. It's running. It'll probably have to be reset. Back to 34, Maddie, 34. Maddie Francis, the Thunderbirds PA announcer, doing a job I used to do and really enjoy, is doing double duty tonight, working the scoreboard too. So there's a lot of adjustment that takes place both on the field and off the field. Tad, you're the not only a Thunderbirds player but also the captain of Temper, Pittsburgh Temper. Are you captaining this year?
Captains have not been decided yet.
Oh, okay, but that was your job last year. And tell us a little bit about the Pittsburgh club scene and particularly the men's team and how that's looking for this upcoming season.
Last year we didn't have as many guys on Pittsburgh Temper as we have previously. We had about 20 guys and really got bit by the injury bug.
Sure.
But it was a reignite the base year. We had a good season, a lot of hard work, and really got the chance, and you don't always get to do this in club, we got the chance to develop players as the season happened. You know, sidelined were Max Thorne and Ty D. In England was Alex Thorne, guys like that. We had some big injuries at the end of the year, Sam Van Dusen. But we worked on a lot of young players. 2 guys at CMU, Jasper Frank and Justin Abel, came up huge for us. A young man you might know, Schwogel from Penn State Barron, the young, lightning quick race car kind of guy, and hopefully we'll you get Max and Ty D back, anything can happen because people always want to play with guys like that.
Well, sometimes you need a down year like that, and it's tough when you're in it. And 20 guys is definitely not enough guys to compete for a championship at that level. But sometimes it's that kind of adversity. Those guys become shock troops. You look over your shoulder. There's nobody else there, so you have to do the job. All right, as the lights have fully come on and illuminated the field, and the light is fading from the sky over the south side slopes on this gray and a little bit chilly evening, we're here for what might be the last point of the first half. The Thunderbirds have met a stiff challenge from the Wildfire. Rough couple of years, but with a lot of energy and a lot of youth, young legs, and they've come out here and given them all they can handle, but the Thunderbirds have opened up a 3-goal lead. And now a big pull coming from, looks to me like that must be Anson Repperman, and it's settling down in the hands of Max Trotter. Rushing down on the mark is Gelati and Isaac Smith. And now the disc is sent back to Pavlianis. C.J. O'Brien circles in front of him. Danny Miller working the middle as he so often does. And looks like Pardo with this now in front of a bidding AT. It's caught by Jack Shea. Captain Jack Shea looks around. The clock down to 13. We're getting that 10-second countdown soon. And this one is sent out to Johnson. And Johnson catches it with 5 seconds remaining. So the question now is whether the Thunderbirds can, in 5 seconds, get a crew of receivers, and we see them coming on the field now. Ty D and Fedchko, Max Shepard, and the Birdman are out there, and then throwers like Patrick Earls and Max Thorne, who can certainly send it the length of the field. Of course, the rules in the AUDL is that in the last minute of play or so, this isn't going to start. This clock won't start until the first throw off of the pull. It's not when the pull is caught, but after that first throw. So Repperman coming on to replace Shepard, and we'll see. Will this Hail Mary work out? What sort of chance do you give this? I mean, in the NFL, this is a prayer. But, with the disc covering and tall guys underneath it to read it, can you put a percentage on a team like this in 5 seconds maybe being able to pull out a goal?
I'd say about 20%, depending on the team. If you've got Ty D and you've got guys like Ethan Beardsley, you've always got a shot. What's critical here is the setup throw. They want to gain 15 or 20 yards. That's not how you do it.
Nope, that pull was misplayed. Patrick gets it. There's a bid, and he's just going to have to jack it right now. He does. It might not have the juice to reach into the end zone. It does not, and it is batted away. Looks like it was Klunder who went up and got it. But the first half ends, and the Thunderbirds find themselves in front, 13-11. So a game that looks like it's not going to jump up there into the 30s. It's been a lot of good defense that's been played. Some mistakes, some early season jitters maybe. Guys getting used to playing with each other. But the Thunderbirds are ahead, and that's where they want to be.
Quick notes on the Chicago Wildfire. Pavlianis right now on fire this first half. Some big throws that he's been relied on to do, and that's just going to open the game up underneath for his team in the second half. Some fantastic work by him, some sure-handed receivers. C.J. O'Brien had a big first half. And And what the Wildfire have shown is they can grind, they can move you side to side, they can reset it, they can be patient, but they can also take those big shots like we've seen guys like Giannis take to capable and athletic receivers. This isn't, this is a team that's in a rebuilding year. They're gearing up for 2018, but this isn't a team that is incapable of scoring and incapable of playing good ultimate. They had a great first half, and the Thunderbirds need to be on high alert in the second half. There are not going to be any easy points, and the Wildfire aren't going anywhere.
Just a reminder that there's a lot of strength in this division in the hands of the Wildfire. So this is not a game that the Thunderbirds are just going to be able to huck their way through. Speaking of hucking, here comes Maxstat with a big pull, arcing its way downfield. Looks like it's going to fall a little bit short, but hopefully inbounds. In fact, it's very short. Way too much arc on that one and not enough distance on it. And settling in on the mark. It's a double team, but it's passed out of, and Trotter's got the disc on the far sideline. Jacks a hammer across the field, and this one doesn't look like it's going to find a receptive audience, and it falls harmlessly.
Yeah, his cutters were coming back in from that break side. A little miscommunication there. Like him, I thought he had it early in the count. He just waited a little bit too long.
Uncharacteristic from what we've seen of Trotter. Getting a little call down here, and I think it's a clock thing. That certainly took more than 1 second, and that was what was elapsed on the clock. And again, a lot of sympathy for our man Matty Francis, just down here in the booth with us, and he's got to do double duty tonight, announcements and the clock. Meanwhile, here comes a double team from Trotter and O'Brien, standing behind the disc.
This seems really warm.
Looks like it's Smith. Smith sends it out wide, floats up a little bit, but in the AUDL field, that's not a big deal. Smith goes up the line, but Maxstat in the back. Repperman comes in, and we got a little bit of cross traffic there. Open over here was Gelati. Thunderbirds having a lot of trouble getting it out of their end zone. Maybe the handler's a little bit reluctant to make risky throws on closely covered in cuts, and they figured, well, let's get it out of here. And down underneath it is AT. He's got company in the point part of Danny Miller, but instead jumping up and ripping it out of the sky looks like it might be Johnson. Yep. Disc now swung across the field onto the far sideline. Renato over there. Gelati picks up the mark, and this one just bounces off of AT, who's going to get a lot of blocks this year. I think he just simply didn't see him. And, hey, that punt worked for the Thunderbirds.
Not a lot of ultimate players from Ligonier Valley High School, but the ones I know are pretty good. Alex Thomas, Natalie Barnhart.
And that was pretty good as well. And I think that was AT finishing things from the front of the stack. Am I right about that? You've got younger eyes than I am. And the Thunderbirds go up 14-11 on the strength of some play from Alex Thomas. Tell us a little bit more about AT. He's a guy, again, Tad, you're well known for a lot of things. For Sin the Fields, your podcast with Patrick, and also in Pittsburgh for your rec league championships. I'm going to give you a chance to blow your horn and tell me how many you're up to.
Oh, well, I don't know.
Not that you're keeping count, but if you had to guess, give me a ballpark.
Ballpark, 6 summer leagues. I think maybe like 2 spring leagues, 5 winter leagues. But who's counting?
Who's counting? Not me. And so you see a lot of these guys and seen them develop for a long time. Talk a little bit about the career arc of an Alex Thomas.
Alex Thomas, not like you or I, but he is a guy that started out just as an athlete. And as an athlete, and he's still a great athlete. Played at IUP, and his senior year, I got to see 2 of their tournaments. They were in zone every point, and he marked in the zone every point. He's got stamina, he's got speed, and he's got field sense, and that's a dangerous thing.
Speaking of athletes, Max Shepard, one of the Thunderbirds' best, rips a pull 10 yards deep into the end zone. And now Giannis has it, and he's joined quickly by a double team, and a very physical one in the form of Mogilski and I think Fedorenko. All right, meanwhile, over on this side of the field, we've got Pardo with the disc. He's being marked closely by Demikas. He finds Giannis, Fedorenko. These strike cuts are working very well for the Wildfire. And that throw a little bit behind the receiver, and Trotter ends up unable to corral it. It's a shame because that's the only mistake that they made on that point. Jesse Evans goes down to his knees to secure a catch, throws one into the middle. not to quite the middle, but he breaks to Fedorenko, and Fedorenko finds Shepard deep, and Shepard's just waiting for it to come down. I mean, there was no question about whether or not he was going to catch that up to that one, and I think as tempting a target as Tyler DiGirolamo is for a thrower like Fedorenko, when he sees Max Shepard with a few steps on his man, it's a no-brainer. You got to throw it.
Yeah, maybe Ty D is just bigger to see, but if you see Max down there, you got to give it to him. What a great throw by Mark Fedorenko. He had a straight-up mark about 10 yards in front of him. It's on you to get it out and get it out quick in front of somebody because Shep is always going to win that foot race.
And I was watching Fejko in warm-ups earlier, and he's liking that throw. There were some really aggressive marks on him, and he was stepping out and able to kind of rip that underneath the marker's arm. Starts out low, and then floats and hangs out there for the thrower. He's a guy who, I think back to his first game with the Thunderbirds, and that was, of course, the first game the Thunderbirds played right here. And I was doing the PA announcing them, and I forgot to call his name. I didn't know who he was. Now the league knows who he is. In fact, I believe Evan Lepler put him in that list of top 50 candidates for the MVP in the league. A long, long way traveled by Fejko, and a lot of hard work gone into it.
Yeah, he's a local guy. Anson. Anson with the run through D on the end cut and looking to pick it up. What we got here? Looks like Maxstat. Fedorenko's a Pine Richland product. He played there with Marcus Ranai Dropcho. He's a good guy to learn from, a disc thrower like him, not just with Ultimate, but...
Whoa. This one goes up. Maxstat whips out one of those throws you were talking about. It's high. There's a lot of competition, and laying out to finish off the block was Kingma there. And now the disc is quickly in motion. Finds its way out to Rummelhart. He's marked by Maxstat. He sends one up the line to Zeman. Zeman is looking. He's got a deep shot to Kingma, but underneath it is Gelati, and it is fading, and out of bounds. So a squandered opportunity on the turnover there. We might look for a timeout from Coach Hogan because his team looks tired.
Yeah, I would say this might be the time for it. Although they've got the guys they want out there. I think they could keep this line. Boy, a missed opportunity by Chicago. Kingman was open. It just faded inside out towards the sideline.
Jonah Wish is a longtime pit player, has been working with the team as a strength and conditioning coach, and we'll see whether or not those workouts he's been putting these guys through pays off on a point like this, a long point where they stay out after the turnover. Whoa. Partially deflected throw there, and Gelati had his hands on it and should have saved it. Was wobbling a little bit, but an unfortunate turnover in the end zone.
This is one the Wildfire really need if they want to stay in this game. Trailing now by 4 points. Easy money.
Alan Guillen picks it up. An easy break. And when you only have to complete one throw in this league on a field this wide, throwers this good, that one comes from handler Trent Kuhl, GM of the team. And unfortunately for the Thunderbirds, Wildfire gain a little ground, but still a lead that feels pretty comfortable at 2, but by no means safe. Looking at the scoreboard, and I'm not sure whether or not Matthews added that last goal. Are we at 15-12 or 15-13? My mistake, 15-12. Looking out at the lineup that Chicago's going to put out here on defense.
Giannis out there now, so they got their big shooter on this D line, looking to get right back into it.
Little quick strike capability if there should be a turnover. Sikора's out there too. And running down under it is Michael Egan. A lot of speed there. Looks like Rummelhart is out there too. And the Thunderbirds are going to counter with Max Thorne. Sent up in a... Whoa! Max does not wait, and he rips a beauty to Repperman. And Repperman... Was that Ty D? My mistake. Both big guys with hats. As the lights dim, it's a little bit harder to tell them apart, but I think Max Thorne knew just who he was throwing to, Tyler DiGirolamo. And Max Thorne generates so much torque. One of the things I've always noticed about the way that you throw, Tad, is that you're able to generate a tremendous amount of power while fully extended. That's exactly the opposite of the way that I throw. And it's not really the way that Max throws either. How does a guy as small as Thorne manage to get off throws like that around marks from guys who are a lot bigger than he is?
I think playing since you're 2 years old is a good way to do it. I talked to Henry Thorne about this one time. I was asking some questions about Alex and Max and how he how he and his wife Karen kind of taught those kids to throw when they were, barely even kids, 2 years old. He says when they were toddlers, they could roll a disc to you. So if you're sitting on the ground with your legs out like you're doing a hamstring stretch, that they could flick blade, roll it to you, and it all started from there. But you're right, Max keeps it in tight. He generates a lot of torque. He also has fantastic arm speed.
Yep, and Henry did too, and Henry's right. He teaches that with the roller. A little pressure applied on defense there on an in-cut. And it looks like Captain Jack Shea maybe dropped that one, but had pressure. McGilsky is cutting up the line, and it looks like who's got that over on the far sideline from us? Fetchko drops the disc back to Robarge, and Robarge has got Diesel cutting up the line. Oh, sorry about that. That's Sung. I'm going to need to get out my bird watching glasses, because from this vantage point in this light, it is difficult to see, but not hard to see. Mark Fedorenko, not the first time tonight that Fedorenko has laced an inside-out backhand to an uncovered receiver. In this case, it was Max Shepard, and you talked about it earlier. Fetchko's throws are really something to see.
Fetchko also has an interesting throwing form, as long as we're nerding out on Ultimate.
Why not?
Fetchko, he throws in such a way, the way that he steps out, and he's such a big guy, he draws a lot of fouls, he draws a lot of contact, and sometimes that results in free throws, and he gets another opportunity to do it again. Sometimes he just beats the mark, even with contact.
Well, he's a big guy and a strong guy, and what he does is he gets that front hip out in front of his throw, and so a marker who wants to make an attempt to block that throw is going to have to go through that hip and that big leg, and nothing bad can happen for Fetchko. Either he's going to complete the throw anyway, or he's going to get a chance to do it again.
6 goals now for Max Shepard. He is on a tear. That's 6 goals is a season for somebody like myself or some of the handlers on this team, but this is a torrid pace.
And 6 goals is more than 1/3 of the Thunderbirds' 17-goal total. Danny Miller sets it back to Giannis, and I think Giannis might have been fouled on that mark, but Fernando does not get called for it, and Giannis didn't look for it either. Now Diamichis brings in that mark gradually. Danny Miller steps out, throws a forehand. Underneath it is McGilsky. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that was not McGilsky. Ferdello, who just rips it out of the air. Smith shoots it across the field to Ty D. Is that Anson? Those two guys are going to confuse me all season. They've got a similar build. Ty's a little bit shorter than Anson. Everybody's a little shorter than Anson. And now Anson sends one into the corner and just beyond the reach of a diving Gelati. Anson probably wishes he has that one, certainly wishes he has that one, especially since the cutters that they have out here right now. And with, I think, Chicago maybe beginning to tire, I don't think that he was going to have to make a high-risk throw. And there again, we see the double team being effective, although looks like we might be getting a call from Kramer. And we are. It's a foul.
It's one of the things about the double team. It's easy to foul. You've got another guy in there. It's unnatural. To the ultimate you play at this point, it's easy to make contact.
Vakaroth was open, and you saw him put his hands up onto his head there when he didn't get the throw. But that was the work of the marker over there, who I think might be, is that Joe Marmerstein? No, it's not. It's Verdello, and he jumped across and managed to shut that one down because Vakaroth was open. Now Vakaroth has it. He sends it up to a double team, and Vakaroth gets it back, middle of the field. Nobody going to double team him there. Sends it back to, looks like Giannis. Giannis fakes the hammer, shuffles it forward to Pardo, gives it back to him, working their way over to the forehand sideline. It's being pushed hard in this direction, but sends an inside out backwards to Miller, and Miller completes the throw to Pardo, and that sequence ends up with the goal. 17-13, still favor the Thunderbirds with 5 minutes or so left in this third quarter.
I guess this is as good a time as any to break the story that Anson Repperman is now living in Chicago. He has been there, I think maybe he got there Wednesday. Took a job out there. He's in Chicago, although not Chicago proper, but in Chicago land.
Right,
he's in like the Wexford of Chicago.
He's there. At this point, I'd say it's safe to say that he's there. Breaking out the loop accent. I talked to Anson about it before the game, and it's a loss not to the Thunderbirds because he's going to be here at least for this season, but really to the Pittsburgh Ultimate community. Anson's an interesting guy from an interesting and very close-knit Ultimate family. And he's got two sisters who play. His older sister is Sister Shayna, the oldest of them, of the sisters, coming back from a knee injury with really shocking rapidity, and we're really happy for her. And Anson's a good guy, homeschooled, lives in the Fox Chapel School District, but definitely his own man and has carved himself out a reputation here, and we're going to miss him in town. Meanwhile, Fetchko catches the disc, sends it to Earls. Earls fakes that big one, and you see a big reaction from Rummelhart. Mark comes on late, so he's got plenty of time to lace one up to Vats. Vats looking, sends one up to Tyler. Tyler looking into the end zone, and Fetchko says, why not throw that forehand? And Tyler says, I think the highlight reel's more likely to show this hammer, Fedge. And then he sends one to the back of the end zone, and it lands where nobody else can catch it. That throw looks so easy, and it is so hard.
I mean, the effortless way with which Ty D throws his hammers is a thing of beauty. I mean, 45 yards, no problem. 50 yards, no problem. We saw the hammer highlight reel the AUDL put together 2 years ago, and tonight he's already got a couple submissions for the 2017 rendition.
And, the thing I love about the way that Tyler throws it, if you look at a lot of guys, anybody who's ever thrown a ball and then gone to try to throw a Frisbee knows that the forehand and the hammer, after all, is just a variation on the forehand. It's just from over your head, rotated 90 degrees. It's a tough throw because you can't step out with that opposite foot like your dad always taught you to do. Most guys will then back up that, if they're right-handers, back up that right foot so they can step into that hammer a little bit. Ty doesn't need to. I mean, Tyler keeps those feet planted and just simply torques with that hip. And it ends up, like you said, 50 yards away, falling exactly where he wants it to. Meanwhile, falling exactly where he wanted it to, I didn't even see the pull, but I'm going to guess that might have been from Shep. But Giannis throws one back the other way to Jack Shea, almost as far. Playing goal line to goal line here, 5 yards outside, and this one Pardo has to go up, catch it, but he's in the air, comes down over the goal line, and it's 18-14, favor of the Thunderbirds.
Shep maybe admired that pull a little bit too long and got caught on a blown switch there. That's the second blown switch we've seen in the game so far for the Thunderbirds, at least one as deep as that led to pay dirt. That's something that we've been working on in practice. Coach Hogan's been preaching it, and we've been trying to come up with ways to stop that initial deep cut. And boy, no worse time than when Giannis has the disc, especially tonight.
And you can see Hogan down on the sideline right now. He's got the team gathered around him, and he's gesticulating with vigor and very demonstratively. And we've heard him back last year when I used to do this roaming the sideline with a wireless mic and a lineup. I could hear Hogan, and my guess is that there might be some let's say PG-13 words that are that he's letting the team have now. Max Thorne has the disc, sends it out to John Mast. Mast sends a little flip into Thorne in the middle of some traffic. Dave Vats looking to shuffle it back to Thorne, who he does, and Vats in the middle. A little bit of a zone here for Chicago, kind of set up a diamond behind the mark. And hey, you'll appreciate this, a push pass from Mast right up to Thorne, who is double-teamed. Looks like he's double-teamed by Woods and Rummelhart. He floats a high release into the middle of the field to Mast, who sends it all the way to the far side to Patrick Earls with that lefty cannon that he has yet to unleash. Instead, he sends up a sharp bender. Vats is quickly marked and then goes up the field. But we've got a cross-field hammer that's going to settle down in Fedorenko's hands. He's got Shepard behind his defender in the end zone, thinks better of it. Thorne has it. Tyler DiGirolamo draws a crowd as he cuts across the field. Mast catches it on the backwash of that and finds Shepard in the end zone. And you see a lot of Thunderbird talent on display right there. You've got guys like Mast and Thorne who are able to throw it across the field. You've got Fedorenko and guys like him throwing cross-field hammers. And then a guy like Tyler DiGirolamo. And it was kind of like, talk about geeking out. If you remember Star Trek, when the Enterprise would be rocked by a photon torpedo, the ship would lurch and everybody on the bridge would come to one side. Well, it looked like the Wildfire got hit with a torpedo and everybody spilled over towards that forehand sideline. And Jonathan Mast, seeing that crew following Tyler D, just simply went against the grain, and Max Shepard saw it coming too, and Jonathan flipped it to him.
It's all set up by that Ty D strike cut, and you heard him call out to Max Thorne, The mark shifted, the defender shifted. He found John Mast, who kicked it quickly to Shep for his 7th goal of the game.
Wow. Shep having a banner night. Meanwhile, Max Trotter floats a fluttery forehand to Giannis. Giannis shoots a nice inside out to Shea. Shea looking downfield. O'Brien open across the field. Let's see if Giannis sends it to him. No, instead, he shoots it up the line at midfield to Pardo. Pardo finds Giannis. Giannis on his own in the corner with a loose mark. Thunderbirds in a bit of a loose marking defense. Out of a vertical stack, we've got a pick called. And, this is a complaint I think that a lot of AUDL players have, and that is that the pick is rarely called here. But the Thunderbirds officiating crew does call it.
Very rare, extremely rare. That's one of the first things you notice if you start playing in the AUDL, how rare the pick call is. There have been 2 integrity rule moments tonight. 2 times a ref's call was overturned. There's been 1 pick.
Which speaks volumes, and I think it also speaks volumes to the role the spirit of the game does play, even at the most competitive levels. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but right now let's talk about C.J. O'Brien unleashing this inside-out flick, which is floating. It looks like it's going to be a little bit of a contest, but Diamikas for all of his, and I think I just butchered his name 2 ways. Diesel likes it. Why don't we just call him Diesel, Diamikas? But in any case, Danny Miller, who is a really nice player, a great downfield cutter who is able to turn around and make good throws. He's been working in the middle of the field all night, and he just got body position on that nice throw from O'Brien.
I talked to one of his teammates earlier in the week who told me he is a boring but good player. And that's exactly right. The way he was able to position Diamikas on a disc that was going right to left, outside in, he just went out there and made the play.
We've seen Diamikas simply jump over guys. And, he didn't have the opportunity to do that without fouling the heck out of the boring but really good Danny Miller. Now we've got a roller pull, which is something that Henry Thorne would appreciate, since in disc golf he almost always pulls with the roller, but this time he wouldn't appreciate the fact that it went out at the 40. Patrick Earls gets it from Shepard, sends it back to him, and now away from the forehand sideline to Jonathan Mast in the middle. He sends it all the way across the field, and I think that might be Marmerstein out there. Earls has it. Sends it over here to Mast. Working this side of the field is Shepard. In the middle of the field is Fedchko. He's going to have to get up there quickly, and Patrick Earls does. Reaches up with his left hand and then uses that left hand to go across the field, but that throw had too much bite for Shep. And, it was one that he couldn't really afford to float, but once you get into sending a disc across the field with a sharp bend, it's the timing, the margin for error shrinks dramatically, which is why in that sort of situation, at least on the other side of the field, you prefer the scuba.
Yeah, I like it against forced backhand. That spot is right in Pat's wheelhouse, though. That outside in lefty flick, we've seen it 100 times in these AUDL games. A big.
We could have it. Hey, Callahan! Oh my goodness! Mark Fedorenko says if they won't throw it to me on offense, I'll take one on defense. And with a big upside down spike, Mark Fedorenko picks up a Callahan goal to push this lead with 1 minute and 14 seconds left in the third quarter of this game to 20-15, favor of the Thunderbirds. How great does that feel when you get it?
Well, I wouldn't know. It's been a while, but Fedchko sniffed one out on Wednesday at practice. Huge, and he let people know about it then too, just like he did with that spike. But a great play by Fedge, who's able to come off the far handler and just step right in front of it without having to leave his feet or anything like that, just instincts.
You're seeing, I think, Chicago running. I mean, they didn't, they brought their full complement tonight, but they've run a lot of the same guys out here on offense over and over, and they've played a lot of offensive points. Are you seeing the effects of fatigue at this point?
I think so. Even with a reset throw like that, when you're tired, the body doesn't perform as well. They've been relying on a lot of the same guys to do the work, and maybe that was the only way they were going to stay in this game, but certainly took its toll here.
A lot of hang time on that pull, comes down 10 yards outside of the end zone, and with a tough mark, Max Trotter gets it off to Danny Miller. Danny Miller looks to Giannis. The captain throws it across the field, and this one, again, like you said, Pardo playing a lot of points, running very hard, covering some very excellent cutters downfield, and maybe not a lot of gas, and just deserted them there. Max Thorne with a very pretty backhand to Max Shepard. Shepard looking to throw that patented whistle scoober, but instead thinks better. Jesse Evans handling very coolly here, getting a chance to do that. Disc is across the field, and then thrown into the middle where it is snagged out of the air by Tyler. I don't know if he was the intended receiver, but he certainly intended to catch it. He does. Throws a break to Jesse and add an assist to his stat sheet, which is looking very gaudy tonight.
Wow. I mean, just the ways that Ty D can break you, especially on the goal line. You get a tall guy that knows how to throw high release backhand. That's easy money.
Sure. And also corralling a throw, which looked like with another receiver, who didn't have time to load up that jump. That thing was coming with some pace. I wanted to call attention to a couple of other very valuable Thunderbirds tonight. Good friends of mine on the far sideline, Amelia Starsenik. She is a 7th grader, I believe, and she is running the discs on the sideline, a really important job in the AUDL. And then on this sideline, wearing red with 2 discs in his hands, my godson, and that's her brother Eddie. And his sister Juliet is here tonight, so I wanted to welcome the Starsonics. Meanwhile, Giannis, a familiar sight. Johnson cutting across the field, trailed by Gelati, and now a big one out here to O'Brien, right in front of our booth. It is shuffled back to Giannis, who's been Matsuka-like in terms of getting every other throw. He laces one up the middle to big Vakarov. Right, now it's in the hands of O'Brien. He sends it up to Trotter. This being moved very nicely, but thrown probably unnecessarily. That big hammer, and I think we might have a timeout on the part of the Thunderbirds. Oh, end of the quarter. Sorry, we weren't watching the clock, and maybe that's what happened there, and that was that, Trotter was watching the clock, knew he didn't have a lot of time, threw up the hammer, decent chance. I would probably favor a throw that's going to float a little bit more, but, when you got 1 second left, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I like the choice. That's the one that we saw Trotter go to reach down for earlier in that quarter, and didn't quite have it, but you throw stuff to the break side with 1 second left. If it's going to knife there, it's going to knife there. Nick Gelati was he gave the old forehead wipe after that one.
Yeah.
Was lucky to get a hand up on that. It was nearly caught.
And, fortunately, that 6-goal lead that the Thunderbirds have gives them a pretty comfortable cushion going into this last half. And while certainly the Thunderbirds aren't going to sleep, we saw in the last game that the Thunderbirds played here in town against Minnesota over at Highmark Stadium just down the river from here, we saw Minnesota put on a pretty impressive surge and come back against the Thunderbirds to make a game of it. So in this game, you can make up points relatively quickly, but you got to think that the Thunderbirds feel good about where they're at and that we might see some things like Jesse Evans coming back in the handle if there's a turnover or maybe even on the O team, and guys getting a chance to do some unaccustomed things. Meanwhile, I want to put a plug in right now for, I think you'll join me in this, Tad, for the chili that we just had from Revival Chili. That was terrific.
Fantastic. Jordan Robar's number 19 for the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds. His new project, Revival Chili. It is it's going to be a food truck, but right now it's a chili brand. They do fantastic stuff. Matt, I think we had the beef and pork up here.
And the spicy chicken. Spicy chicken as well?
Spicy chicken with cornbread.
It's the only, and to me, that's the only way.
Oh, you got to have the cornbread. It's delicious, and part of the business model is they take people that are, to some companies and corporations, unhireable due to criminal records or being released from jail or prison, and it gives those people a place to work and an opportunity to live a normal life. So it's a great cause. Definitely try the chili. Check it out. You can see him around town. The food truck is forthcoming, but he does a lot of business locally. Make sure you give him a follow on Facebook, Revival Chili.
I'm certainly going to, and I had a chance to interact with some of the staff that was down there working the tent. They were very busy and really terrific to deal with. I had Tony down there. He helped me out with these toppings. We got some jalapenos, some cilantro, a little shredded cheese, said no to the sour cream. But, they've got a terrific product, and it's a terrific idea. So another example of good people in this game doing good things. I want to talk about another one of those good people. He's a good friend of yours and mine. We had him in our podcast last year. We hope we'll get a chance to do that again, talk T-Bird talk. Kevin Kramer, Thunderbirds referee. And hang on 1 second. We're getting a little attention here from our technical crew. But Kevin Kramer is the author of a newly released book, which was briefly in, I think, the top 100 sports books or something on Amazon.com, and that's called Universe Point. And tell us a little bit about that, because you played a lot with Kramer.
We're going to switch batteries out right now, so we're going to leave you for a moment. We'll be right back.
The batteries we put in were worse than the batteries.
And it's time to start the fourth quarter. Thunderbirds to receive.
All right, we're good now?
All right, we're back. Max Thorne with the disc. Chicago running that junk defense. Joe Marmerstein with a huge hammer to Tyler DiGirolamo, kicks it up to David Vatz. David Vatz kind of going to a knee, back to DiGirolamo.
Vatz is flattened there.
And
Don't see a
well, there was
call.
kind of a self-call,
Yeah.
but not a stoppage.
No, they let it play on. And I understand how, a guy like, I guess Kuhnler must feel there. I think it was he who had the contact. And, he sort of acknowledged, hey, man, my fault. And play seemed to slow a little bit. But then you get the crossfield hammer. I feel like the junk defense that we just saw from Chicago might be, look, sometimes you just got to switch it up, and sometimes it works. But I also think that they're tired of chasing these guys because given the offensive weapons that the Thunderbirds have, this is not the Madison zone defense, and I don't feel like leaving guys as open as some of those receivers were, you're going to be able to slow the Thunderbirds down much with the junk zone.
What tonight has shown us is that Chicago's top end is very good. They're relying on those guys a lot, and they're not as deep as Madison. They're trying some different things. Sometimes you run a zone like that, and they give it back to you right away, and you got a chance to score. But Chicago's going to need to start finding a way to get goals in a hurry.
You've talked about that, Tad, just the intensity for people who haven't played professional Ultimate of, the one-game format. And we'll talk about that more later. In the meantime, let's take a look at the action on the field. Trotter now has it playing catch with his partner, Giannis. Giannis zips it up to on the forehand sideline Johnson, and then he gets it back from Johnson. Remarkable how he's so often able to get that disc back. And this time, ignoring a strike cut, Michael Pardo open in the end zone, and he had room. And Kramer, he is used to making close calls on Chicago goals on that very spot. That is the famous spot where the Thunderbirds managed to see their season saved by an on-the-spot call from Kevin Kramer when Goose Helton had his toe right on that line, and Kramer was right there to see it.
It's funny, though, in 2015, that was one of the craziest games I've ever been involved in, club or professionally or even league. That's where we saw the Brett Matzuka 113 completions game. I think he was 113 for 114. Goose Helton just narrowly out the back. That would have done it for the Wildfire here in overtime. But Pardo gets the better of the sideline on that one.
And Kramer talked about it in Universe Point, that terrific book that I've been reading. And as I mentioned before, you wrote the foreword to. And he talked about how, he was right there and he started to have doubts about whether he had been right. He said to Goose Helton, if you had, and a big bid by Cool, who almost takes that disc away. From Marmerstein, and instead it goes to Tyler DiGirolamo, who throws a quick fading hammer right on the goal line, misses an assist by a foot. But I will not forget that throw. I feel like the guy deserves that. That should be a hockey assist, don't you think? Because he manages to find, who did he find there on the goal line? Fetchko. And then the disc was completed for a 23-16 Thunderbirds lead. Was that the backwards hat who caught that? I couldn't see. But, let's give him a hockey assist.
That's just unbelievable. You kind of don't admire Fedge being camped out under one of these towering, spinning tie D hammers there. That's the second one he's found himself just waiting under, because when you have too much time to think about it as an Ultimate player, sometimes bad things can happen. But just an incredible throw by Ty D, who, maybe thought, well, first his hammer's on fire, but sometimes you run out of room with the backhand there.
Yep, and that hammer just faded perfectly to Fetchko, but you're right about sitting underneath and waiting for it, and you got to quiet your mind. Meanwhile, have a lot of time to think about this pull as it comes down almost at midfield. And a brick to boot. Wow. Wow. A terrible, let's just call it what it was. A terrible pull, but with a lot of hang time and plenty of time to set up. Anyway, though, Kramer talked about that call, and then later, and I don't remember who gets the photo credit, but, the photo revealed him to be absolutely correct. Passing out of a double team is Giannis, but it looks like there was some contact, and looks like referee Brian Heim was right on the call, and pushes the disc up. Fernando on the mark. Giannis with the disc. Off the top of the stack is O'Brien. It's dumped back to Trotter. Trotter sends a bending forehand. Back to Giannis across the field. Smith on the mark on the dump. Now the disc in Shea's hands. He's being forced downfield. And now the disc comes out towards the middle.
Trotter
Shuffled
showing
up to
some
Trotter.
real speed there, making that up line cut, the trailer hitch.
Well, these. Oh! However, that speed resulted in a possession, which ended in a floater across the field. And, when you talk about Matsuka, that 113 out of 14, a lot of those handler throws look like they're pretty easy throws until you try to make 50 or 60 of them in a game. And think about the last time you made 50 or 60 throws, just standing on the sideline where you didn't have to say, oops, my bad. And then think about what it's like with a professional defender trying to shut that down. This disc is zipped into the middle of the field where AT shuffles it back to Verdello. Verdello, a man whose name I will eventually get. But he's probably wishes I didn't know it now because he just threw that one away in the end zone to Smith. Now it's in the hands of O'Brien. He throws up a nice forehand to Johnson, who's got plenty of room. Runs it down on the sideline as it was starting to fade out of bounds. Miller's open in the end zone, being guarded by Gelati. Sent across the field to Pardo, who catches it right on the goal line, steps back, swings it out to O'Brien, and it's 23-17 favor of the Thunderbirds. So a lot of progress that we've seen tonight from the beginning of the game to this point, where the Thunderbirds seem to be in a fairly steady offensive rhythm. An uncharacteristic throwaway there. But up until then, it looks like the Thunderbirds have been able to be pretty successful with almost anything, and they're throwing a lot more over the top right now, and it's finding its receivers. These are not throws, though, that you can rely on against a team like Madison regularly, are they?
Absolutely not, especially when you're going to be double-teamed by two huge dudes. Kevin Pettit's Scandling, some of their other big guys, and that's one of the things that sometimes overlooked. They know the spacing in Madison, but they also have big bodies that get in your way and know how to set a really effective double team.
Yep, and there's no real way to warm up, and there's no team just like them. Oh, here comes a big shot going downfield for Shep underneath it, and a mighty bid on that disc, and it looks like that might have come from, I think that's Rothundi, who brings the thunder and brought it there, but not scared of thunderstorms is Max Shepard, who corrals that, ends up in a heap in the end zone, but with a point that brings it to 24-17.
8 goals for Shep. That's
We are counting down to double digits, and Shep's making a statement, right? I mean, here Chicago's had some pretty good defenders on him, and I think that when we look at the stat sheet after one game, and a couple of teams have got more games, but most of them after one, Max Shepard's going to be up there near the top of the leaderboard in terms of goals. And I think given the trajectory of his career so far, you got to figure that it's time for him to challenge to be a marquee player. I mean, a name that people will know. Looks like Mogilski pulls this one, and it is coming down middle of the field. Giannis has it again. Marmerstein settles on the mark, lays out for it, throws a couple of big fakes, and then gets it back to his buddy Trotter. And this one goes awry and is almost pulled out of the air by O'Brien, an alert O'Brien, but it was behind the receiver. Shea drifting downfield into defense, and coming over to pick it up is Marmerstein. Looking to see what he has. Defense sags into the middle, and instead, he simply picks it up. And how many is that for Mark? Any ideas?
Not sure. I would say that's got to be close to his 5th goal of the game.
Yeah, one of them was an assist from the Chicago Wildfire, but lots of them from the Thunderbirds tonight too.
That's unbelievable. Joe Marmerstein just lulls the Mark to sleep, gets him going on that backhand, who just steps out and delivers a quick, just beautifully thrown around flick. That break huck, those will kill you. It's one of those ones when you're the mark, you want to pull your hair out. Just a great throw by Joe Marmerstam.
Let's talk a little bit more about the league beyond the Midwest Division, Tad. The big story, I guess, of the summer was that the Dallas Roughnecks lost a couple of, you can't get much more of a marquee name than Bo Kittredge or Cassidy Rasmussen, but those guys are now with San Francisco, and a lot of their former teammates from San Jose have followed them there. But Dallas still looks really, really strong, and they had a big pickup during the winter too. Is Freistetter playing for them this year? I believe he is. Or am I wrong about that? Jacksonville for the Cannons, displaying my ignorance or pre-senile forgetfulness. In any event, though, the West and the South both look really strong. Who do you look for to be? I mean, is Dallas still the favorite this year? San Francisco taking their place? Raleigh, although they got beat early on by Dallas, and hold on, we got a big throw downfield.
Diesel.
And Diamichis makes the run, and we're seeing an appeal from the receiver. Yep, and he says to Diamichis, hey man, I think maybe, and Diamichis says, you know what, I think you're right. Integrity rule, third time, this time results in a goal.
That's a lot of integrity rules in a game, but we should keep track. Picks versus integrity rule.
We're 3-1
in actions.
I'm thinking back to the playoff game, and it got some attention in AUDL circles from the video of 4 integrity rule calls in the game against Madison. That was a playoff game, and I know that there's a lot of controversy over the AUDL choice to go with officials. You play at the highest levels of club in the USAU with the hybrid observer system. You play with the referees. One concern was that the responsibility to maintain fair play, spirit of the game, would erode in the AUDL. Have you seen that, or do these integrity rule calls suggest that at least this generation of players still takes that responsibility seriously? Meanwhile, Tyler DiGirolamo, you can answer that in a moment because we don't want to be talking. When Ty has it, sends it out to Fedchko. First team offense is out here. Max Thorne has it. Looking downfield, he finds Ethan Beardsley, as he often does, cutting over the middle. Beardsley looking for a safe throw, and he finds one in the form of Pat Earls, who whips out that lefty that he throws up, and that's a combination. We think about Max Thorne throwing the goal to people, but we forget Max Thorne is a deadly receiver with very sure hands and a great leaping ability downfield.
Yeah, Max Thorne is just fantastic in space, and man, that's got to be like the 1,500 career score hookup for Pat Earls and Max Thorne. You were talking about the integrity rule stuff, Matt, and I'm glad that it's in place. There are some gray areas with when there's a foul in the stack or things like this, but in terms of the bang-bang nature and the way that the AUDL wants to keep Ultimate watchable, I think it's perfect in that way that, it can happen on impactful plays, and you let the refs call the otherwise mundane stuff and, the mandatory stuff, which is no longer the player's obligation.
Yeah, which has got to be a load off of your mind. Another thing that occurs to me, and again, I am a big proponent of the hybrid observer system as a high school coach and often a rec league captain. I think it's important, but I do think that it's simply in some ways, and hold on, we've got a big shot from Giannis, and why not? Meanwhile, Jesse Evans giving chase, Sikora underneath it, and Evans goes up and makes a really nice bid, but Sikora comes down with it. So we're probably going to see Chicago airing it out quite a bit, and that brings them to within 8, but no real threat to the Thunderbirds with 7:36 left in this game. But I think for those people who are worried that refereed ultimate is going to sort of take over the game, I think it's important to remember there are simply structural obstacles to that. Referees cost money. And for all of the wonderful developments in Ultimate recently, there ain't a hell of a lot of money in it, not to use a word that I can't use on television, but I'm not on television. And so I think that at least for the foreseeable future, collegiate games, youth games, league games, and probably USAU games are going to be, played with some form of self-officiating. And I think as long as those are the streams for the players in the AUDL, we'll continue to see the responsibility that I think is important to most of us.
And one of the great things about that refs and observers both have in common is bad refs and bad observers are bad, and it would be better just to not play without them. Fortunately, here in Pittsburgh, I think we've got one of the best crews in the league.
I agree, and they take it seriously, which I think is important. I think the whole Thunderbirds organization, has been marked by some real professionals from top to bottom. Even though they're not making a bunch, they take it seriously.
Some really nice switching here by Chicago, and a great job of Woods by getting into that throwing lane tight and behind the shoulder of the marker. That's the only way to stop that huck, especially when it's Pat Earls' flick.
Yep. Still Tyler doing a lot of hard work underneath it to get open there. And then, of course, that hammer. He finds David Vatz, who knows where to go to get open. Vatz looks downfield, thinks about the inside out, but then thinks, that's not my job. Instead, he gets back to Marmerstein, who throws a laser of an inside out to the laser himself, the lefty laser, Patrick Earls. And talk about knowing how to get open on the field. In the back of the end zone there is David Vatz, former challenger for the scoring lead in a couple of seasons ago. But that was just a display of the range of skills that Patrick Earls has. A terrific catch, and then a really nice throw, placed where only his receiver could get it.
When you talk about David Vatz, he does a lot of work off the field in the gym, but his between the ears game is so good. On that last play, we saw Patrick Earls bust deep, take 2 defenders. Vatz saw he was the poached guy. Ty D's got the disc. Okay, I'm just going to drift into this open break side space. And it was off to the races. Great job by Vatz by just knowing where the disc is coming from based on who has it and where everyone's at on the field.
I'd say that there's very few guys I've seen who understand the capabilities of their teammates quite as well as Dave Vatz. He adjusts his cutting very much to who has the disc in his hands. And when he's out there with throwers like Earls and DiGirolamo, or when he's out there with somebody like you who has unusual throws that the defense isn't necessarily going to expect, he knows where to go. Meanwhile, knowing where to go as usual is Danny Miller, making that cut right up the middle, and then a safe but nice inside out to Shea. Shea shuffles it out to O'Brien. O'Brien surveys the field, sees his in-cuts being stifled, and then simply misreads. Miscommunicates with Giannis.
A lot of reset turns here in the second half. Chicago just throwing to guys that should be open for swings. It's just not there right now.
Tyler DiGirolamo thought about throwing it to Repperman and instead decides to go across field. Will this one stay in bounds? It does not. And I'm not sure whether or not that was to Diamichis or whether or not it was to Repperman. You think it was to Diesel?
I think it was to Diesel. Max set threw one of those in warm-ups earlier, a kind of a similar throw. Also to Diamichis, that one just kind of got away from him, cruised out the sideline.
Yep. Okay, we see a double team quickly passed out of. And then here comes Gelati on the mark. Looks like that's Smith. Covering across the field, now moving in on the mark. Is that Max? Max that? No, that's Gelati. Fridello is on the mark right now. Giannis jumps it back and then gets it back from Trotter very quickly. Fridello on the mark, broken. Sent out there to, looks like that's O'Brien. Moving backwards is Chicago. AT, very tough defense. That's got to be a sweaty throw. Shea's got it, sends it back into his own end zone, and they are going the wrong way. And finally, looking behind him, seeing not much end zone left to throw into, Giannis says, we need a timeout, fellas. And you got to figure both with the switching defense downfield and the fatigue that's got to be settling in the legs of the Chicago Cutters, there was not much of an alternative there.
Yeah, you see a lot of timeouts in the AUDL that are strategic based on personnel.
Right.
This was just more of your traditional.
I'm gassed.
I'm gassed. We gotta take a second. I need a blow here, and we'll regroup and get the looks that we want when everyone's a little bit fresher.
And the third kind of timeout, of course, which doesn't happen as often in the AUDL, is the kind when you're the rec league captain and one of your rookie receivers with 0 throws at this point catches it on the goal line, and you wish you had a remote control button you could hit to make the guy yell timeout.
That's what's so great. Oh, man, if you had this capability in League Ultimate,
can you imagine?
That'd be fantastic.
Well, the Thunderbirds have made a point of using it really well from the beginning, and it's something that I think it's an element that I think that Ultimate might want to incorporate. At other levels. I don't think that would be a bad development for USAU. There's a kind of mentality I think it goes along with playing tournaments and never subbing out. On a timeout, you can't sub out on the timeout. Of sort of like you play. The idea is you're an endurance athlete as well as as an ultimate player, and I think that it makes things interesting for the fans to be able to see new personnel come on in the new situation. Meanwhile, this situation is a tough one. A double team from the Thunderbirds. Giannis looking, ends up dumping it back to Howard and O'Brien. Finally, they pop it out to him. Mark settles in. It's Robarge has it, and then this is a hammer to O'Brien in the open space, working very hard downfield against Gelati is Shea. Instead, the disc is in the hands of Pardo. He's being marked, and the strike cut from Giannis, who sends it up. Looks like it's throwing it to the referee, but Shea gets on his horse, gets to the goal line, stands up, throws a disc that probably should have been in the end zone. Miller catches it, knows it's going to be a safe throw, dumps it back to Trotter. Trotter looking and throws an inside out, a bid. Yeah, was it a lefty backhand? A lot of players have that throw, that offhand throw, that little lefty high release, and he flips it out for a goal, which brings the score to 27-20. So it gets the Wildfire over that hump to 20. I had said earlier in the game that it didn't look like we were going to get into the 30s, but it looks to me like now I might have been premature. I think the Thunderbirds certainly are probably going to notch the big 3-0 mark tonight on their home opener.
It's the same guy doing it to the Thunderbirds, Pavlianis. He's getting a lot of touches, and he's making a lot of big throws. Reminds you of his career at Colorado playing for Mama Bird, just doing a lot of work right now for the Wildfire. And just a great throw. And Jack Shea is so fast. He's a machine guy. Fantastic player.
Got to be thinking, though, if you're a guy like Pavlianis, as much as he's used to that game, this is the first game of the season. Man is working awfully hard. And I think that some of the other Chicago handlers are going to have to step up and make some of the impact throws downfield if they're going to, if they're going to be able to succeed, because defenses are going to catch on to that. They'll essentially box and one on Giannis, or cover him. They'll put their best defender on him, and they'll roll defenders on him, and he's going to run out of gas. You can't do that for 4 quarters night after night. Meanwhile, Marmerstein airs it out, sends it up, and a very nice catch on the goal line by Max Thorne. We talked about those hands, and he finishes that up. Didn't see who it was who caught that. Did you, Tad?
I think it was Ethan Beardsley.
The Birdman, and in the custom position. And yes, you see that stoop-shouldered sort of big man hunchback there. Ethan is one of the most unassuming big men you can find. I mean, you look at two guys, a guy like Max Shepard and a guy like Ethan Beardsley, and you would expect you'd notice Ethan, and it's Shep that you notice all the time.
Birdman's got his own style. He's very laid back. He's a Warren County guy, and I've known some guys from Warren County in my time at Edinburgh University, and they've got a similar kind of laid back bit of country.
Going fishing back there.
Exactly.
Just going fishing. He'd rather be fishing. Reeled one in there, and it was the 28th for the Thunderbirds tonight, so with 3:51 left to go in this opener. Looks like a foregone conclusion, but we'll watch this Max Shepard pull, which will be spectacular if it lands in. No longer a question. Falls into the hands of Trotter. Sent to Giannis. No surprise there. O'Brien camped out right behind the double team. This one is laced out into space to Eric Johnson. Johnson picks it up. Shepard sagging off the mark on him. Giannis laces it into the middle. Shea swings the disc out to Pardo. Pardo looks downfield, sees a somewhat tired C.J. O'Brien, understandably cutting, but Johnson again gets it. C.J. may be making a cut for the corner, but again, a little slow. That strike cut up the line, instead thrown into the middle of the field, tracked down in the middle of the field, and then sent out into space, and we have a diving bid over there. I didn't see who made that bid. Josh Sung, brought in to be a defensive specialist, and then it's sent back across the field to Pardo. Nice bid on the goal line, and we like to see that at this point from somebody like Sung. Late in the game pretty much iced, but still out there making big plays.
And another great focus catch by O'Brien, who sends it across the field for Pardo, just using the space, the width of the field. O'Brien, again, played for Cincinnati last year. He knows the AUDL, the dimensions of the field, and no one went with Pardo there.
We talked with Adrian King the other day, the coach of the Chicago Wildfire, and they've got a new regime in place over there. Meanwhile, the Thunderbirds are entering their 3rd year of existence, and their third year under the direction of Dave Hogan and Dave Lionetti, who is his assistant coach. Tons of experience, an old teammate of mine going back, his playing career goes back 26 years. What do those two guys bring to the Thunderbirds, and how does that stability, augur for their chances down the road?
Hogan is just a film junkie. He he follows the game so closely. He watches situations and scenarios and really gets the team prepared from a scouting standpoint, from a strategy standpoint. And Weasel Lionetti is just he's, what do you call it, a lifetime learner? What's like the business thing,
Right.
one of those
I think that's the buzzword.
the buzzwordy things. That's Weasel, man. He just...
Hey, I have an update. We've got 3 integrity call rulings to 2 picks. Another pick coming from the backside there. Looks like Brian Heim must have his earbuds in. Wants to at least keep it level.
Yeah, I think he's looking down at his phone right now, checking out the live stream.
Must be multi-talented. Meanwhile, speaking of multi-talented, going up high, I think that's Fetchko over there. He's trapped on the sidelines. A lot of work from the handler. And meanwhile, catching it over on that far sideline. And again, my eyes failing me in this light. That was that Marberstein to Fetchko. Fetchko's got it now. Laces an inside out to Earls. No mistaking Patrick Earls, especially with Sam Van not in uniform tonight. And he throws a flat backhand into the middle to John Mast. John Mast has a target who runs underneath it. And wow, is that Max in the back of the end zone there? Looks like it. And that was one where it was one of those throws where you're looking at it and you're thinking, no, don't throw that, John. You don't have room. That cut is spent. And he says, oh, I wasn't looking to hit him on the sideline. I just wanted to put it in the back corner. That's a big boy throw.
Yeah, and a big boy read by Max Thorne, who's able to draw his defender up and out of the play and just cruise on to a well-thrown disc in the back of the end zone.
And that makes the score 29-21. We're inside of 2 minutes right now. What you mentioned about Dave Lionetti, he is a guy who is always thinking. I've played on many teams, rarely the captain, but often the kind of on-the-field coach. And one of the things that he likes to stress is in practice, mix things up, do things that are unusual, play guys out of position, funny rules.
The game within the game is something that Weasel always says. So if you're doing a drill or you're doing a scrimmage situation, you figure out the game within that game and try to use that to the advantage. Like 3-on-3, make it, take it. Always have a guy run deep after make it, take it.
Exactly.
Things like that.
Playing Winter Casual League with him, that was fun. And, it was also fun for me because I'm getting to play a lot with my daughter Maya right now. She is 17. She is one of the captains for Shadyside Academy. They notched their second win this past weekend. We have a diving bid and a beautiful catch by Johnson on a throw from Max Trotter. This one into the end zone and almost falling victim to the conservation of greatness principle, which rules this game with an iron fist. Johnson makes that great grab and then floats one into the end zone over his target. And who is there to pick it up but the steady man for the Wildfire, and that's Danny Miller. Boringly scoops up the garbage for a goal, bring the score to 29-22. But I was saying that, we played this winter in a winter casual league situation with some of my old buddies, including Weeze, and he is a lefty like Maya is, and so she looks up to him, and having a guy like that be able to give instruction to your kid when she's coming up in the game is really terrific. And I know that the Thunderbirds appreciate Dave's commitment to this team. He's got 2 young kids, a wonderful wife, a busy job, and he's still playing. We're going to Beach Nationals, Virginia Beach, in about a month from now, and his commitment to the team has helped a lot. So I think that continuity is going to help the Thunderbirds. Meanwhile, in the middle of the field, it's Tyler in a commanding position. He shoots out a backhand to Fedorenko. Rather than throwing that huck, he sends it to Marmerstein in the middle of the field. Marmerstein sends it out to Earls. Earls throws that lefty backhand, his natural backhand, to Shep. Shep looking, big fakes, moving around the mark. Instead sings it out. Is that Max Thorne over there? Looks like that to me. Max sends it back across the field, and we're under a minute, 45 seconds left, and the Thunderbirds are playing catch and practicing something now, I think. Tyler with the disc right now, resisting the temptation to throw it up the line and succumbing to the even greater temptation to throw yet another hammer goal. And, we happen to be up here. We're not alone. We've been joined in the booth by a very good friend of mine, an old friend, my former student, Aaron Gorse, who also happens to be a very good friend of Tyler DiGirolamo. And Aaron, has he been looking forward to this game?
He's been looking forward to this game and coming back very much so.
And you think he's going to be feeling good about his performance tonight?
I think it's going to be a happy night.
Wonderful. So you heard that from Aaron. Aaron would know better than anybody else, and we can see from the smiles on the Thunderbirds sidelines, so many positives to take out of this game, but probably none bigger than the fact that I think with an exclamation point, Tyler DiGirolamo is back in the AUDL.
Back. They're going to escape this game healthy, it looks like, with 33 seconds left.
At this point, I'd be on the field if I were on this roster because, you don't want anybody you can't afford to get hurt. But the shock troops are out there. Looks like you're right. Clock starts. 30 seconds. Giannis, as he has been all game, throwing big fakes on the run. He does not tire. Gets it back from Pardo. And then he lifts up that right leg and throws a big helixing hammer. And I believe underneath that one, was that Anson? That was who got the block for the Thunder? That was Anson. And Anson he might want to buy, if they show up at the lot tonight, he might want to buy a beer for Giannis because he fed him a block. And time runs out. The game is over. The disc goes up into the crowd from Diamichis. Don't see who caught it, but we know that the Thunderbirds, 30-22, finished the first game of the season opener in style back at Couple Stadium. They're home during their first very successful season and in front of a boisterous crowd, hopefully a bigger crowd next time. The Thunderbirds notch a much welcome victory.
Wow, this is just great for the Thunderbirds. A great first game. They experienced adversity early in the game. And we've seen before some very one-sided games here. Chicago represented themselves well. They showed that they've got great players. If you're Coach Dave Hogan, you have to feel really good about the depth of your team. You've got to feel good about their conditioning. They definitely wore Chicago down in the second half, and once they got that lead, they never gave it back. So a great first win for the Thunderbirds.
I'm wondering, Tad, if you think you might be able, since you've got fresh legs at the moment, to go down there and see if we can get the attention of Dave Leonetti and get him to come up here and maybe join us in the booth for a little recap. In the meantime, I'll hold down